What do you do when your entire life savings becomes completely worthless overnight? The banks hope you never find out. Today, I'm revealing the 15 illegal and forgotten hyperinflation tricks German families used when their currency collapsed in 1923, and why the ultimate wealth transfer at number 1 is exactly what the modern banking elite is terrified of. Americans talk about the Great Depression as the ultimate test of survival. But in 1923, Germany faced something far darker. It was a complete currency wipeout, an apocalypse that makes 1929 look like a minor market correction. Prices didn't just double, they doubled every 4 days. A loaf of bread that cost 250 marks in January cost 200 billion marks by November. The entire central banking architecture completely collapsed, and fiat currency became literally cheaper than dirt. But amidst this financial slaughter, German grandmothers and workers didn't just survive, they built a ruthless, decentralized shadow economy. They bypassed the central banks, weaponized debt, and turned worthless paper into hard assets. We are opening the 1923 financial survival ledger. Let's begin. 15 German hyperinflation tricks. Banks hope you never remember. Number 15. The Satchwort obsession. Tangible assets. When a currency is dying, the biggest mistake you can make is keeping your wealth inside the banking system. German survivors developed a psychological defense mechanism called the Satchwort obsession, the absolute focus on real tangible assets over nominal numbers. They completely stopped looking at the numbers printed on banknotes. 1,000,000 marks meant nothing. Instead, they priced their wealth in calories, pounds of coal, or ounces of iron. If a man had 10 pounds of nails, he was considered wealthy. If a man had 10 million marks in a bank account, he was considered a fool. Number 14. The velocity protocol. Spend in minutes. In a normal economy, you save your paycheck. In a hyperinflationary collapse, saving paper money is financial suicide. The Germans mastered the velocity protocol. Because the fiat currency was losing purchasing power by the hour, speed was the only defense. Workers demanded to be paid twice a day. The second a factory worker received his bundle of cash, he literally threw it out the window to his family members, who would sprint to the nearest store to buy anything, bread, a pair of boots, or a block of cheese, before the exchange rate changed at noon. Number 13. The paper utility flip. This is the ultimate humiliation of central banking. By late 1923, the cost of printing the money was higher than the purchasing power of the money itself. German families realized that buying a bundle of firewood cost more paper money than the physical paper those notes were printed on. So they triggered the utility flip. They stopped trying to spend the money and started using it for its raw physical properties. They burned millions of marks in their parlor stoves to stay warm. They used uncut sheets of currency as wallpaper because it was cheaper than actual wallpaper. Number 12. The wage indexing rebellion. The banking system loves a monthly salary because it locks you into a fixed rate while inflation silently steals your purchasing power. The German working class refused to play this game. They instituted a massive decentralized strike against fixed wages. They forced employers to tie their pay directly to a daily index multiplier based on the exact price of a loaf of rye bread that morning. If bread went up by 500% at dawn, their wages had to go up by 500% before they picked up a tool. Number 11. The Notgeld shadow matrix. Emergency money. When the central government fails, who prints the money? You do. The German Federal Bank was printing trillion-mark notes that nobody trusted. So, local communities completely bypassed the federal government and issued Notgeld, emergency shadow money. Towns, local factories, and even bakeries started printing their own regional currency. But here's the trick. This local money wasn't backed by central bank promises. It was backed by physical town assets, like lumber reserves, a local grain silo, or town gold. Number 10. The barter triangulation. When money dies, society instantly reverts to the oldest financial system on Earth, the barter economy. But direct bartering is difficult if you don't have exactly what the other person wants. Germans mastered barter triangulation. They didn't just hoard goods they needed, They hoarded high-liquidity goods that everyone needed. Cigarettes, butter, and coffee became the new baseline currencies. A mechanic would fix a car in exchange for 10 pounds of butter, not because he wanted butter, but because he knew the local dentist accepted butter for his services. Number 9. The stamp micro-asset hack. How do you store wealth when you can't buy gold and the central banks are collapsing? You buy government utility. During the hyperinflation, ordinary citizens rushed to the post office and bought thousands of postage stamps. A stamp was a physical guarantee of a future service, moving a letter, that retained its utility regardless of the fiat currency's value. When prices doubled, the inherent trade value of that stamp doubled on the black market. It was a perfectly divisible, lightweight microasset. Number 8. Gresham's hoard, silver over paper. There is an ancient economic rule called Gresham's law: bad money drives out good. The German grandparents executed this flawlessly. Before the war, German currency was backed by and minted in actual silver. When the government started printing worthless fiat paper, the citizens immediately noticed. They spent the paper money as fast as humanly possible, but they aggressively hoarded every single pre-war silver coin they could find, hiding them under floorboards and burying them in gardens. They completely drained the nation of real, tangible money. Number 7. The rural calorie leverage. In a financial collapse, the hierarchy of power flips overnight. Bankers and lawyers became beggars. The farmers became kings. The rural German food producers realized they held the ultimate leverage. They completely stopped accepting paper money from the cities. City dwellers would take trains to the countryside, offering family heirlooms, Persian rugs, and diamond rings just for a sack of potatoes or a side of bacon. The farmers amassed massive real wealth simply because they controlled the calories. Number 6. The pawnshop arbitrage. When inflation is rising hourly, debt is your enemy, but fixed-price tangible assets are your target. German citizens exploited the lag in the system through pawnshop arbitrage. Stores and pawnshops couldn't update their price tags fast enough to keep up with the hyperinflation. Savvy citizens would take their freshly printed wages and instantly buy any hard asset sitting on a shelf: microscopes, pocket watches, even heavy machinery. Knowing the price tag was already obsolete, they captured the value difference in raw metal and mechanics. Number 5. The foreign reserve anchor. If your own government's money is a trap, you have to anchor yourself to an outside force. In 1923, possessing foreign currency, especially the US dollar or the British pound, was the ultimate financial shield. Because the German mark was in free fall, a family that possessed even a single $10 bill could literally survive for months. They didn't spend the dollar, they used it as a psychological anchor, slowly shaving off pennies on the black market to buy weeks' worth of groceries. Number 4. The hard asset conversion, the junk hoard. If you couldn't buy gold or foreign currency, what did you do? You bought junk. German grandmothers started hoarding the most bizarre items simply to get out of paper money. They bought crates of nails, rolls of copper wire, old iron pipes, and piano wire. To the untrained eye, it looked like they were collecting garbage, but in reality they were building a decentralized bank of base metals. A roll of copper wire will never go to zero. Number 3. The trust ledger, community credit. When fiat money becomes a mathematical joke, society reverts to trust. In small towns, physical cash completely vanished from daily life. Instead, bakers, butchers, and mechanics relied on the trust ledger. They simply kept running notebooks of who owed what, measured in goods or labor, not paper money. The blacksmith fixed the butcher's wagon, and the butcher owed him meat. This shadow banking system relied entirely on reputation. If you broke the trust of the ledger, you were financially exiled from the community. Number 2. The zero balance bank boycott. The modern banking system survives by holding your deposits and lending them out. In 1923, the German people effectively starved the banks to death. They realized that the central banks were offering 100% interest rates on savings accounts, but the inflation rate was 10,000%. Keeping money in a bank was a guaranteed mathematical loss. So the population executed a mass, decentralized bank run. They pulled every single paper note out of the system and kept a permanent zero balance, crippling the central banking mechanism. Number 1, the mortgage annihilation, the debt wipeout. The final trick. It is the greatest, most devastating wealth transfer hack in modern history. The central banks are terrified of this mathematical reality. It's the mortgage annihilation. Hyperinflation destroys the value of fiat money, but it also destroys the value of debt. In 1918, a German farmer might have taken out a massive, life-crushing mortgage of 100,000 marks to buy his farm. It was a debt that would take 30 years to pay off, but because the debt was a fixed amount, the hyperinflation completely wiped it out. By November 1923, 100,000 marks was the price of a single matchstick. That farmer could sell one chicken on the black market, walk into the bank with a wheelbarrow of worthless cash, and pay off his entire 30-year farm mortgage in a single afternoon. The banks were legally forced to accept the worthless paper and hand over the deed to the land. The debtors became the absolute owners of the physical earth, while the banks were left holding ash. The central banking system relies on your memory being short. They want you to believe that digital numbers on a screen are real wealth. But the bloodline of 1923 proves otherwise. When the system cracks, fiat dies, and tangible reality takes over. Start trading your paper for hard assets today. Build your community ledger. Stay sovereign. See you next time.